Hey guys, Terence here again from Neptune Systems. Today we're going on a field trip. We're going about an hour north of here up to San Francisco to see a friend of mine who's doing a really cool project with an apex. So I want you guys to come along with us. Hey guys, Terence here from Neptune Systems. I'm here in San Francisco, California at the Steinhart Aquarium at the California Academy of Sciences. I'm here to see Richard Ross, the senior biologist, and he's doing all sorts of really cool things with corals here at the aquarium. Let's go inside and talk with Richard. Hi guys, I'm here at the Steinhart Aquarium at the California Academy of Sciences with Richard Ross. Hi Richard.
Hi, how are you doing, Terence?
He is the senior biologist here. And he's doing some amazing things with coral for a long time at the Steinhart Aquarium here. But we're here for something special today. Tell us about it, Rich.
This black box behind you right here.
Something in here.
This is our coral spawning lab.
Okay.
It's Rebecca Albright's lab, and I've been running it. And in this lab, we have spawned acropora coral in a synchronous spawning, and collected the spawn and fertilized the spawn, and we have 7 baby corals.
So you already have some baby corals growing?
We do.
So we already have a little bit of success from this.
Yeah, no, the initial success from this whole project is insane, and the speed at which it happened was insane. We started putting this together, I think, in November.
Okay.
And then we got the build done probably at the beginning of January, and then we realized we needed to get corals to stock it with, to spawn, and we realized that gives us 2 choices. One, we go
to my house.
Go to your house. Well, we need a lot of the same coral of different genotypes.
Okay.
So this is the issue with hobbyists in hobby tanks. We see spawns from time to time, but it's one coral.
Okay.
And they generally don't self-fertilize. So while I'm hoping a lot more people start trying to get their corals to go off, the odds
is that the technical term?
That's the technical term.
To go off.
Yeah.
Okay.
To go off. And that's very cool and will help us learn a lot of stuff. I'm not sure how much baby coral that will yield.
Okay.
But I still think it's very cool. So we needed a bunch of...
Is that because they won't settle in a home aquarium?
They won't self-fertilize.
Okay.
So most of these spawning corals put out an egg-sperm bundle.
Okay.
That then split up. And then so different genotypes of the same coral do that at the same time. That's the whole point of the synchronous spawning in the wild.
Okay.
Bunches of different corals spawn at the same time.
Okay.
The sperm and egg float up, those bundles break apart, and then the eggs and sperm from different individuals mix. And that's how you get the corals being fertilized.
I never realized that. I'm so used to hearing about any kind of animals when they're spawning. You have this one over here that's releasing the sperm, and this one over here that's releasing the eggs. So if I had 2 different Poeciloporas in my tank, though, that were completely different, wouldn't that...
Well, Poecilopora is different. That's a brooder.
Okay.
So that actually spits out larvae that are ready to go.
Right, because that's why we get them all around in our tanks sometimes.
Exactly.
Okay.
So even with the corals that are male and female, you need different genotypes near enough each other spawning at the right time. It is possible if you had 2 of the same species of acro in your tank that were different genotypes and they spawn, that'd be great. There's no reason that shouldn't work.
Would they settle out, or would all the fish eat all the larvae? Or,
yeah, well, maybe not. It's hard to tell. The PDAM, the Poecilopora, those larvae come out looking to settle. Acropora is a whole nother game, because you've got 4 or 5 days where they're really just floating and doing nothing until they start to swim, and then another 3 or 4 days till they actually settle down.
Very cool.
So when we pull them out, we sequester them in their own tank. We put them in these cones where they're incubating and where they grow up a little bit. And once they start to swim, we put them in other conditions that are safe and that have got settlement material on them, stuff we want them to settle on.
So technology, okay? So the reason obviously I'm here is because we've got some technology that we've helped you employ to hopefully help make this happen.
For sure.
Tell us a little bit about that.
What we think we know about coral spawning is that the synchronous spawns are triggered by moon cycles, sun cycles, irradiance cycles, and temperature cycles. Could be a whole bunch of other stuff as well. So what we're doing in this room is we're mimicking those cycles.
Okay.
So we want this to be as much like Palau, which is where we collected these corals, as possible.
Okay.
So it's not actually on the same time zone as Palau. We slid the time zone around a little bit to make it easier for us. So the spawn happens at 9 o'clock Palau time, 9 p.m. That's 12 o'clock noon for us here.
Okay.
That's one of the benefits to the whole thing.
So all the environmental things. So we have the
Yes.
sunlight,
Yep.
the moonlight.
Yep.
We have flow in the aquarium that has to be
Absolutely.
maintained a certain way. We have temperature
Yep.
that has to come up and down a certain way. What
Yep.
else did I miss there
That's,
that you're trying?
that's about it.
So now tell me real quickly before we get into the technology, one thing I didn't touch on is what's the purpose of this? What are you going to get out of this, and what's the longer term vision? I know there's people talking about reseeding the reefs. That's one aspect of it. But I'm sure there's other scientific reasons why we want to do this.
What Rebecca Albright is doing, and I'm helping with, is the research side of it. So to be able to get larvae, coral larvae, to do experiments on, to raise them at different acidity conditions and different temperature conditions and see how they respond, to cross different corals and see which are more heat tolerant. We were careful about where we collected from. So some of them are from really hot conditions at the top of the reef crest, and some of them are for deeper. So we want to see, do those have better thermal tolerance or better bleaching tolerance? So that's what that is. And that's why we want to do it. And if you're doing this in the field, it's very expensive to get people out there to collect the corals and do the experiments out there. You have to basically set up an entire lab on the fly and get it working.
And basically, at the time that they're going to spawn, and then you go home, right?
Right,
And
and then shipping the coral larvae home is a whole nother game. And so, and then also you're at the mercy of the weather. So there's been coral spawning trips where you go out and you miss it because you can't get out because the weather's bad. So here, our lives become much easier, right? In the field, you're up until 3 in the morning processing spawn. Here, they go off at noon. We're done by 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We have a regular life, and it's great. And the amount of experiments that can be done is much bigger because we have all of this infrastructure in the building to be able to support whatever we want to do rather than a field lab.
So touch on maybe, a couple of the ideas of the experiments that are going to happen. I know everybody's really, tied into, global warming and the effects and the bleaching of corals and, the big news on some of these documentaries that have been done recently. Does any of this tie back to that?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Rebecca just had a paper in Nature that talks about if you run a reef to the pH of pre-industrial society, the corals are much more efficient at everything. They process everything better. They're healthier. She also had a paper where she looked at larvae that were growing up in different conditions, and the more acidic the conditions, the more unhealthy the skeleton structure of those larvae once they settle are. So being able to fold this back into restoration efforts is really important. What corals should we focus on? So in the Atlantic, there's two. There's 2 reef-building stony corals we care about. In the Pacific, there's hundreds.
Right.
So if you've got an area that you need to rehab, what coral does it make sense to start with? So if we can determine which coral can deal with heat and deal with stress and deal with acidity better, might make sense to start with that coral and get the foothold of the coral in the new area.
Get foundation in the reef.
Yeah, and then hopefully other stuff would follow that.
Interesting.
So the number of experiments that could happen for this on all levels are just,
and that's the beauty
infinite.
Of doing this here in the lab is that you have, hopefully at some point, an endless supply of the larvae and the small growing corals or whatever that you need to test on.
Yeah.
And therefore, all of these ideas for experiments and stuff can actually come to life.
We can do them.
Exactly.
And we can do them without flying anywhere, so we go.
From an economic perspective, I'm sure with the donors to Steinhart and whatnot, it's a way better use of money to create 1, 2, 4, 6 of these type than flying people back and forth to plow over and over and over from an economic perspective.
Yeah, it's more efficient.
Right.
I mean, there's never not stuff to be learned by doing this in the field and going and looking at the spawn in
We're
the
not going
field.
to get in the way of you going to Palau.
Yeah, no,
Don't worry.
it's not.
Okay?
It's just, it's field research tends to get cut, and I want to make, it's important that it's not, because
yes.
Because one of the main things I want to do is grow these up to get them in our 212,000 gallon exhibit.
Only 212,000.
Only 212,000 gallons. It's running off a single ATK. It's crazy that keeps up with it.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's take a look at some of the technology and follow you around. You can explain to all of our control freaks out there, all the gear that we put in place here for you guys to help make this happen.
Sure.
And they can kind of geek out a little bit and live vicariously through you with all the cool stuff that you have.
Great. Awesome.
All right.
To show you.
All right, we'll show you what he's got. Great.
So this is our dark room, our coral spawning lab. Come on over here just so you get a feel for it. That goes down over here, and it basically blocks the entire view of this room, which is fine because we're putting a monitor up to talk about it. But it was the only space we could find for this kind of prototype lab. This is the door. We don't want anybody to go in here, so it's actually got a lock. and when somebody's inside for safety reasons, we flip this so people know. I can also put all kinds of information so we know what time we can go in, what time the spawn's expected. There's no spawn expected right now, so we're in good shape. So we come in here and you see nothing but inky blackness. So come on in here.
I don't know, I'm getting kind of scared.
Yeah, no, you should be kind of scared. Come on in, this is our vestibule. And
Okay.
this is how you get in to be able to...
I am in the vestibule.
Be able to service the tank without messing it up with light pollution.
Oh, look at
So
that.
now it's dark. I happen to know that the lights are on right now, so we can just then come in.
Okay, so how many tanks we got in here?
We got 6 tanks. They're about 70 gallons each. They're actually really nice size, about 18 inches tall by 24 deep by 36 long. About 70 gallons. That's pretty great. And again, it's really just, this was our prototype. This is our proof of concept spawning system. We got our lunar lights up here. This is what mimics the moonlight, and it's great. The apex just does that once in the
So they're not over the tank, they just light the whole room up.
Yeah, if I was going to do it over the tanks, I would have had to get another set. But the way it is now, I don't think your camera will pick it up. We could turn off the lights, but the lights hit both areas. And we're getting about the right number of foot candles that we want. So we had to get apex control in here. So there's some up behind us which we can't see. I think there's a WXM up there, and there's also a PM2 up there.
So you're running Radion lights, right?
Radion lights, which are fantastic.
So the XR15 G4 Pros.
G4 Pros with diffusers.
And you're controlling them with WXM module.
WXM module.
Which is kind of important because that's where it comes in, all of the programming for the day cycles and night cycles and everything else,
yeah,
right?
it's without the apex right now, there's no way to do this except by flipping a switch, having somebody do it 20 hours a day.
And this is something that Jamie kind of helped develop.
Yeah, Jamie developed this, and it's great. And so we go in, we figure out when the moonrise is, when the moonset is, we figure when the full moon is, we figure when the sunrise is and the sunset is, we figure what our maximum temperatures per month is, we go into the season table, we put that all in, and the apex then generates the schedule for us. So it's kind of great. And then we make a couple of profiles, sunrise, midday, sunset. And if I need to change the intensity or the colors, I just do it in that place, and then I only have to do it once.
Cool.
Which is really pretty cool. And it's a really nice way, actually, to do acclimation.
What else we got up here?
Up here, we've got a par meter, which is kind of great. I've been using it to make sure that the lights have been going off at night because I don't want to be here.
So that's the PMK, so it's got the light sensor.
Right.
And that's just like a safety thing, so basically if anything were to go wrong, it has some safety mechanisms in there?
Yeah, like if there's no light at a certain time, it'll tell me. But mostly now I've been using it to just check the par like you normally would.
Cool.
So I can wake up in the morning and go and look at the at Fusion and see that I have my arc of where it's supposed to be daylight. So I'm very happy. And I can also look and make sure I've got my arc where it's supposed to be night light. So if somebody comes in and flips the lights on during the coral's night, I'll know about it because it's logged.
Cool.
We're also using it to measure air temperature because this room has to be vented because with all of this electrical stuff in here, it gets hot and will actually heat up the tanks. So it's great when we're doing spawning and we turn off all the flow to the system. We don't want the room to cool down, so I press. Right now I'm doing it by press feed A. It turns off all the flow in all the tanks. It turns off the Vectra pump, and it turns off the airflow in the system, and it turns on an air pump in here to put bubbles into the tank.
How cool.
It's just awesome. So if I'm not here, I just press A. The air temp is being measured and it is helping make sure we have enough ventilation in here.
Awesome.
So that's very cool. And then we have 2 1-links that are controlling all of the wave pumps.
So flow in the tanks you're doing with our wave pumps. You have, how big are these tanks again?
It's about 60, 70 gallons.
And you've got not just one, but 2 wave pumps in each of these 60-gallon tanks. So you must be able to create some pretty serious flow if you wanted to.
Very much so. And the reason for 2 is because I want to, it's important to me to be able to change the direction of the flow. So I do this at home. I figure there's 4 times a day that the flow changes on a wild reef. Right? There's a slack tide, there's a ebb tide, and then there's 2 transition tides. And they go different directions. So I want that to happen. Also, I think there's never enough flow. People just don't I mean, that's a lie. You absolutely can have too much flow, but I would so much rather have too much flow and dial it back down than not have enough flow. So these are great. I can get a really nice motion whipping back and forth. So the flow's got to change. So, pipeline, it's about anywhere north of 20 seconds each side, and it blows this way, and it really stirs everything up.
So it gets the detritus out.
Yeah, it's really great, and you can watch the detritus marching around the tank. And then we have the waves supplying all the real water motion.
What about food and carbon source or whatever?
Yeah, so we're feeding the tanks a lot. Big fan of heterotrophic feeding. Corals got mouths, so
what does that mean for us basic people?
Put food in the mouth.
Okay.
So once a day, the flow gets turned way down through the tanks, not the actual flow in the tanks, to allow the food to sit with the corals for about an hour. And we do baby brine, we do live algae, we do Bene Reef, we do Calanus, we do rotifers, we do all different kinds of plankton, amino acids, basically anything, any kitchen sink stuff we can do.
All right.
And then we're doing carbon dosing, we're doing amino acids, we're doing trace elements, all that kind of stuff, being dosed with a dose. What else can I tell you?
Well, we can go outside and see some of the gear on the outside
that's
too.
That's where all the real gear is.
All right, that's the Apex stuff. You got obviously your water filtration down here.
Yeah, our water filtration is kind of interesting. All of the returns from the tank go into this tube, and at the bottom there's a core, and the core pulls directly from this tube right into our filter sock, our automated filter sock. And the reason for that is we'll get most of the goo from the feeds before it gets loose in the rest of the system.
Very interesting. So basically it feeds into that little tunnel, and you're pulling from that tunnel into there so it doesn't go into the rest of the live rock, and you don't get all that detritus build up in all the live rock in your sump.
We're exporting it before it has a chance to break down. The skimmer is close to that as well. And we got a calcium reactor, we've got our BRS reactor that's run with a PMUP, a pump to move.
Every time I hear somebody say that, I get a good laugh. So now look at those temps, okay? That's the first thing I notice when I'm looking at this. Is that for real? You're running those tanks in there at almost 84 degrees?
Yeah.
Wow.
For right now, for part of the year.
Wow.
That's how hot they get in the wild. The danger of bleaching comes at about 84.7, 85. So
you don't have a whole lot of room for error on the system.
It's pretty good though. The way the system's run, it's going to be hard for it to get up there.
But it's super necessary to have really fine control over temperature like the Apex gives you, because regular heater controllers sometimes will have 1 degree, 1.5 degree plus or minus.
Yep.
And if you're trying to hit that exact temperature for the spawning,
yeah, the difference between 81 and 82.5 matters.
Yeah, it matters.
Yeah, and then we also have a chiller, heat exchanger that's also hooked up to the Apex. So the Apex is turning on the chiller when it needs to, and it's turning on the heater when it needs to, and it's turning them both off when the other one's on, so they're not fighting each other.
Now Salinity, you're running at 33 parts per thousand, is that?
That's what we're running right now.
Okay.
So Salinity is always a weird one for me, trying to figure out which device is telling me the truth.
Right.
So I like to run it between 33 and 34. So
there's
I've
a lot of room for
buffer.
Confirmation bias in the Salinity, right?
Yeah, I hate testing of everything.
I know.
So yeah, I want a big buffer. And also, you know, if there's evaporation in here or if the skimmer goes nuts, you know, 4 inches of fresh water will make a difference in the system.
Right, right.
So I definitely, but I mean, I say like this system, every system I run it the same way.
Right.
Because the same problems can happen.
Well, you don't run every system at 84 degrees, I don't think.
No, but actually doing a whole lot of research into this and the temperatures that we needed to run this at year round, I've changed a little bit of temps. So where 78 used to be my baseline for everything, and then going through and watching how, you know, does it actually hit 74, 76? So now 80 is my baseline for everything.
Very interesting.
So the big reef tank here used to run 78. We're now up at 81. This system here is now running 80, 81. My tank at home is running 80, 81. So I mean, you know, I might change my mind on that in the future. If it's cooler, you tend to get fewer runaways of problem bacteria, and the coral grows a little slower, so it's a little steadier. When it's a little hotter, it's a little more volatile, but I'm thinking now currently that a little more temp is a little more better. We'll see if that pans out.
Interesting. And you're running a calcium reactor on here as well.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, the corals in the lab here are growing like gangbusters. gangbusters
Well,
at this temperature.
The metabolism and everything, I'm sure, is that.
Yeah, if you want them to grow gangbusters, turn up the temp a little. If you've just bonsai'd and you're just having a nice display, it's fine to turn it down some.
Excellent.
Yeah, calcium reactor, GFO we're running, and also carbon, GAC. And this is my favorite, is the high-tech probe holder.
Oh, yeah.
Because that floats up and down as the water level.
Can I license that design from you?
It's we'll have to
Talk to
Jim Welsh actually designed that, so you'll have to talk
see.
with him as well.
Okay, well, so we've gotten results already. You've already had them spawn.
Good
now
initial results.
Now you've actually got little corals swimming around?
We do. So building this got done in like January. Well, it was actually being built all the way through till I got on a plane, and actually a little bit after to collect the corals. So most of it was done, and then we decided we better get corals that spawn in April rather than waiting till December, because otherwise this system would have been sitting around.
For what? Yeah.
And so we talked about it and said, let's go. So all of a sudden, boom, we're doing a collection trip, and then we get boom, and we're back. Boom, we're dealing with all the problems of a new system. Boom, we're on spawn watch. Boom, we've got spawn. Boom, we're on baby watch. Boom, we're on settling watch. So since the second half of February, I've been run completely ragged. It's awesome.
But it's the greatest.
It's fantastic. It's purpose to purpose to purpose. And every success we have, then the new thing is the terror. Will the next thing happen? Will the next thing happen? So I think we're pretty good now. I think we're just a grow out. And for all intents and purposes, even if we don't get good grow out for whatever reason, the system has proved itself. And that was really the main goal.
Well, we're really happy, Neptune Systems to be, part of this. I'm really excited. I was really excited when I saw the video come out this week. And, around the world, we're helping different coral labs do a lot of different experiments, and some of them doing the spawning like you are. And it's really exciting for us to see. Let's take a look at some of the little animals that come out of this.
So right here, we're doing some settling trials. So in each of these tripores, we've got different substrate that we're trying to see, what are they going to settle on better? What are the corals going to settle on more happily and more readily? And you can see right here on the top of the water surface, those little dots are coral larvae. So these are all coral larvae. They've slowed down a little bit. Most of them have settled already, but in this particular one, they may not like the settling substrate. So this one's swimming around. This one here is swimming pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
It's got it? Oh, yeah, this one's going now.
Very cool. So the substrate, you've got like discs and whatnot down in here?
Yeah, in one we've got acrylic discs, in another we've got some microscope slides that we seasoned. And we want to do that because we'll be able to see them develop from underneath. And then another, we've just got some coral plugs. We use this system to incubate the corals. When the spawn happens, the egg sperm bundle comes up, we collect all those, we separate the sperms and the eggs, then we mix them back together in the right proportions or in the right genotypes if we're doing crosses, and then we put them in basically incubators. And the incubators we use are these tanks right here. And these cones are really nice because we can control the flow through them. For the first 12 to 24 hours, we don't want much going on at all. We want it pretty static.
So that's the direction they go. I see, when I saw those, it looked like something might stick over the top of something, like when I'm feeding coral, but you're saying, no, I put the water in like this, and then they slowly come out the bottom?
No, they just stay in there. So the goal is for them to stay in, and we have a screen that fits on here, the flow through it is enough to keep things moving, but not get all the larvae stuck to the screen.
Got it.
And we can also do air. And so for the first 36 hours, or 24 hours, they're almost all just on the top. And then they start to swim, and then they start going down. And when they start actively looking for a place to settle and going down, we'll collect them all out of these cones. Once we had a whole bunch of larvae, and we separated our larvae for the experiments in those tripores over there, we had the rest of the larvae. And I want the rest of the larvae to settle on anything it could possibly settle on, really. But we did a bunch of different substrates in here as well to see if there was a preference. So we have a bunch of corals that are settled, and we'll basically just leave them alone for a while and grow them up.
How will you know? How will you know that they're, you just start seeing them sprout up and...
So as soon as these settled corals take up the zooxanthellae, when we shine this light on them, we'll see them fluorescing. So we'll know they're there. But right now, we can see them, we know they're there. We've seen them, they're not fluorescing as well, but you can see a different color. So we know we've got settled coral, so we're very, very happy right now. It's been fantastic because we've learned so much about the last couple of weeks. I mean, you know, I talked about turning off, setting feed mode A to turn off the waves, to turn off the vectra, to turn off the lights, and to turn on a lamp, air pump, right? All that is built on the fly as we start doing it. So 4 days into the spawn, I go, God, I'm tired of turning off 5 different things. Oh, why don't I just put these all on their own feed cycle or a virtual outlet? So that's really cool. And also, working in there in the dark, we can't use a regular flashlight. We have to use red lights. So now, if I hit feed zone D, the radions go on at a red light at 50%, so we can work without impacting the corals.
Very cool.
And those go off automatically. So I'm a big fan, especially of work when you're exhausted, of things turning off or going back to their regular settings automatically. So when I turn off all the flow, in 3 hours it's coming on whether I remember to turn it on or not. The red light's going off whether I remember to turn it off or not. And that's the kind of use of the controller or Apex technology that I think is really useful. I think we're coming into a time when the 2 biggest points of failure in a system is the aquarist, and then by proxy is the controller, because you've just given stuff over, you've just shifted responsibility. Absolutely. So I think we're coming into a really nice time when we're really starting to understand the relationship between the person and the controller and how they can reinforce each other to have success. And I'm really excited about all that.
That's great, that's great. What about monitoring? I mean, obviously things can go wrong.
With a little more time, we're going to get a lot more into the monitoring.
So,
and see, you know,
power monitoring.
Yeah, power monitoring. Are the pumps running as they're supposed to be running? Is there a weird cyclical thing happening in one of the pumps that's telling me something bad's happening? So starting to really get into that, both here and at home, now that I have a little bit more brain power. I think that's a really useful thing. So I'm very looking forward to being able to spend some time and setting that up in a way that makes sense for this project.
Well, it's been great to be here, Richard. I'm going to tie this up now.
Great.
So, you know, we look to do some more great stuff with you guys. We're here to help, and we definitely want to hear more from you down the road. We're going to come back. You're not far away from where our headquarters are, which is, so that's really convenient. Any last words?
Yeah, you guys, I want to thank you guys for being so supportive of this project. Really helped us get it going up and going and running in a short time. So I can't thank you guys enough for that, and also for the support that you guys have given me when I call you up with questions. It's been really helpful. And then just to say, even your regular support, when I just call with a ticket, they got back to me very quickly. So it's great. I think this stuff is wonderful. I can't wait for more people to do it. I can't wait for hobbyists to experiment with it and let us all know what you discover about what's actually needed for the spawn. And I can't wait for you guys to come back and see the next steps.